This is part 6 of the FACIT N4000 restoration project. I'm making some progress. I've reinstalled the control panel. I didn't video this, it's fairly dull, it's just really a case of putting 2 screws in and routing the ribbon cable. I've reconnected the punch head, makeshift CHAD box on the front, so hopefully I'll be able to get it running shortly. And I've reinstalled the main control board. So just quickly going through the board, what we have is an RS232 interface, a secondary interface and a third interface. Now I've got the second interface installed. The third interface is obviously not populated, but I'm using the RS232 interface. That's what I use for all my other punches and readers. Now we have what amounts to a 6800 processor. I'll come back to that in a minute because I do have a problem that I'm hoping that you guys can help resolve. Some 6821 PIAs, 6822, power supply up here. That's obviously a fairly beefy supply for the punch head, and the 5-volt supply for the electronics, and then obviously just a set of drivers for the various solenoids for the punch head and for the stepper motor that we looked at yesterday, and then a bit of sort of glue logic to join it all together. We have the control panel connected here, and the tape reader plugs in here, but I'll look at that in a separate video. This board again was very easy to fit, so I didn't video it. It's just really a case of sliding it in from the back, and then it engages with this connector here, and making sure that the wires were all routed without pinching or getting caught anywhere. Okay, so what I did before I reinstalled this board was to inspect it, check for any poor connections. I've taken out the ROM and I've taken an image of that. Now unfortunately I took out the main processor chip, and it's actually a 68701, so it's essentially a 6801 that includes an EEPROM. Now the problem I'm getting with this machine, I have powered it up, and I'll just demonstrate what the issue is. So when I power this up, it comes to life. I don't know if you can see it or not. It says line on the display, and none of the keys are functional, except if I press the off key I get the word pass appearing, and the only thing I can then do from that point is either go back to line. Now it did operate in line mode, but it was in a weird mode for telex 5-bit punching that I don't use, and I need to be able to switch it into a more standard form for it to be of any use to me. So I can also press the stop key or the star key, the display goes blank, and then I'm assuming there's a passcode that can be entered. I don't know how you then enter it, whether you press the stop key or star key again. It seems that when you enter data into this, you enter the value and then press the star key, so I'm assuming that's what you do. You go into this mode and then we need to enter a passcode, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 digits or more. I've got no idea. I can't find any mention of this whatsoever in the user manual. I'm assuming that information would be in the service manual, but unfortunately I don't have the service manual, so if anyone out there knows how to enter the passcode or what the default passcode may be, then please let me know. Now having said this, once I got to this point and I could start to operate it, as I say, it will punch, but only with very specific parameters on the terminal program. I decided what I could try doing to remove the passcode is the usual trick of removing the backup battery. You can't see on the camera, but up here there's a small coin cell soldered to the board, and then we have a static RAM chip that is connected to that coin cell. So obviously this is non-volatile RAM. So I took the coin cell out and waited a couple of hours, thinking that it would come back with just other nonsense or factory reset values. A word of caution doing this: some machines need specific values in their non-volatile RAM, otherwise they won't work at all. But I was fairly confident in this case that that wouldn't be the case. There's no real calibration information on this or anything like that. It's just used to store data, buffer data, and some parameter values for baud rates, etc. But when I put the battery back in and powered it up, I had exactly the same situation. I had lines showing on the display and it was asking for the passcode. So I was a bit confused as to where this was stored, and then I was beginning to wonder if maybe this wasn't hard-coded into the EEPROM. So the next thing I did was to get a copy of the datasheet for the 68701. And what I noticed reading through it is there's a line down here which says internal RAM 128 bytes, and then in brackets 64 bytes retainable on power down. So I'm assuming that's where the passcode is stored, along with the current configuration of the machine, and that the SRAM is used for other things, maybe just storing other data or whatever else is required to be buffered when data is sent to the machine. The only problem is I can't find anywhere else in this manual any reference to this non-volatile RAM. Now, because of the age of the device, and here we're looking at 1984, I doubt it's got EEPROM built into it. I don't think that was really available in this type of application at that time. So that means it's more than likely a very low current SRAM. In theory, if powered down for long enough, then it should lose the data it's got stored. So the only reference I can find to this in this manual is there's a bit that is set by software in a status register when obviously the unit's powered up and running, and then when the unit's powered off, the flag seems to be maintained by an internal monitor circuit, probably a latch of some sort, and that bit is cleared if the chip believes that the data stored in the non-volatile RAM may have been corrupt, i.e. been powered off for too long. It gives no indication how long that would be. I have tried removing the chip from the board for 3 or 4 hours and it makes no difference. But it could also be that it's only a few minutes that it retains the data, and then when you power the machine up, if it detects that the data is corrupt, it then loads it back from default values in the EEPROM, either the main EEPROM or the EEPROM on board the device itself. Because I can't read these, I've got no way to check that. I can read this device, it's a standard 27 series EEPROM. But unfortunately, although my programmers support over 100,000 devices, they don't support this one. So if anyone's got any ideas on that or any information on this particular chip, then I'd really appreciate any help on that. Now, that was kind of going to be potentially a showstopper. I can't use the machine if I can't configure it, and all the configuration is done through the interface. However, what I did find is that there is a bug in the firmware. So what I can do is I can force the machine into an error state, and the reason I started looking for this is I write a lot of firmware for the systems that my company develops, and generally speaking 80% or more of the code is to do with error handling and is in itself where most of the errors occur. So generally speaking, if you can force a machine into an error condition, quite often you can bypass security features, and that's what I can do with this machine. So what I will do is I will force the machine into an error state, and there are several ways you can do that. The easiest way is to make it think that the tape has either broken or is too tight. So in other words, if I pull the tensioner pulley all the way back and I lock it into the load position, the machine is going to think that the tape is too tight. I will now send it some data from the terminal program, and it should throw up an error on the display. So I'll just go and do that now. So again, I don't know if you can see this, but it's come up with an error. If I exit the error, I can now actually go into the normal operation of the machine. So in other words, we've now bypassed the passcode. So everything works the way you'd expect it to, including being able to go through all the system settings, parameters, etc. So I've now gone through and changed those to what I need them to be. So that's that problem solved. I'd still like to get around this passcode problem. Now there is an option in the manual for performing a factory reset, which I've done. I've gone through that. It's option 60 in here. And it did do a factory reset, but it did not clear the passcode issue. So again, that might be that I need to know what the default passcode is in order to remove it. So again, if anyone's got any information on that or a service manual for this, then that would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise I have to go through this rigmarole each time I power the machine up, and obviously it's a bit of a pain to do. However, once I've done that, I can then put the machine into its running state. Everything works as you'd expect it to, so I can feed tape. I'll push it back a bit so you can see the tape. So I can feed tape, I can feed a single leader or an all-bit leader. Again, this is just a cheap and cheerful Chad box so that I don't end up with a room full of confetti. So I'll go and send a file from the terminal program, and you'll see it printing. Okay, so as you can see, it works. It's printing the data as it's supposed to. I've compared this with the data coming out of my other punches, and it is correct. All the parameters are as they should be. Okay, so that's it for this video. Making good progress. Got the electronics up and running aside from the password problem. Obviously the tape feed is working as it should do. I can now refit the cover on the top, and the next step is to repair the cover for the front and then connect the tape reader. So in the next video we'll look at the tape reader, see if I can get that up and running, and once that's running I can go ahead and start finishing off the rebuild by repairing the plastic parts and putting the whole thing together.